Kav, good to have you here and again at noise11.com. Not talking about you and not talking about Eskimo Joe this time, but talking about Fleetwood Mac. How did
Yes,
you arrive at this
Mac.
position?
Well, if you're really lucky in Australia, they put together, all of these, they'll get a bunch of really great singers together and pay tribute to just an amazing band. And this time round, I've been asked to come along and sing the songs of Fleetwood Mac, which is awesome. With some really, really cool singers. So we've got Charlie Collins, who's amazing. We've got Karen Lee Andrews, who's just an absolute machine, and Lisa Mitchell, who's just a superstar. So really great singers. I'm the token dude on the bill because Fleetwood Mac is such a female heavy group as far as the songs and the good songs and stuff. But of course, someone's got to be Lindsey Buckingham, so that's me.
Well, I was going to say that. Are you the token Lindsey Buckingham, or will you be mixing up and maybe doing some Christine and Stevie songs and some of the ladies doing some of Lindsey's?
I think that would have been a great idea, but no, I'm basically doing all the Lindsey Buckingham stuff. So, and then the girls are getting on and doing all of the amazing, Chrissy and Stevie songs. And there's so many good songs, and it's one of those kind of similar to the Beatles in that way. You know the songs before you even because obviously, I mean, I grew up listening to Rumors was probably the big album for me. As soon as I started collecting vinyl, one of the first records I bought with Rumors because it's just such a great sounding record with really good songs on it. Mythical classic moment in time record, but one of the great things about doing these shows is you actually really get under the skin of a band and explore parts that you wouldn't get to know as well. And singing some of the Lindsey Buckingham songs. There's a couple of songs I wasn't really super familiar with, like Big Love. I'm doing, there's like an acoustic rendition that he does of that on like a live album. So I'm doing that version of it, which is really, really cool. And I'm really enjoying that.
It's interesting. We're talking a lot about Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham here. They were latecomers into Fleetwood Mac. In fact, I guess there were three Fleetwood Macs. There was the pre-Lindsey and Stevie, there was the Lindsey and Stevie, and then there was the period towards the end where there was no Christine in the band, and at various times I think Stevie was out and Lindsey was out, and you never had that classic lineup of John, Mick, Stevie, Lindsey, Christine since 1987's Tango in the Night. Sort of starts at the Fleetwood Mac period, 1976 or 75, and goes through to 87. Does your set list encompass just that period, or do you go beyond 87 and pre-1975?
Well, I think you have to play Albatross because that's just such a great song. So, spoiler alert, the set starts with Albatross, which I think anyone who's heard that song's and was aware of that period of Fleetwood Mac, 77 to 87, you kind of go, oh shit, this is Fleetwood Mac, because it's just such a cool tune. And that was, the story with those guys is they'd already kind of had the fame, they'd had the groupies and done the whole thing, and then had this amazing second life by bringing on two superstar songwriters into the band, because it's been really, really interesting because yes, we are kind of encompassing this period of time, and there's lots of solo work that's encompassed into that as well. So there's a bit of like Stevie Nicks' solo stuff in there, because boldly I'm going to go and say, I mean, I think like Chrissy McVeigh was just a superstar, and if you look at her songs that she wrote, and also the fact that she's credited as producer on a lot of those records as well, meant that she was clearly the last person in the room a lot of the time, making sure the ship was on sail in the right direction. But I still go back to Stevie's songs more than anything else, and I think her lyrics and melodies have stood the test of time better than anything else. I mean, Dreams is just still an effortlessly amazing song, but there's also songs like Edge of 17, which is from her solo stuff, and they obviously I'm not a part of that because I'm not a female singer, and it's a big female vocal number, but they do a version of that in the set, and it's super cool. And I think I appreciate it more from seeing them do that as a big super vocal group, like as a song, like to be reinterpreted without the kind of cheesy 80s sounds and stuff in there is really, really cool.
What about a song like Stop Dragging My Heart Around? Can you also be Tom Petty as well as Lindsey Buckingham?
I'm Tom Petty in that song. I mean, I'm a huge Tom Petty fan, so I was just like, and you know about Stevie's love of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and how she was an honorary heartbreaker for a period of time. They gave her a little badge that sat in her hat. But yeah, we do Stop Dragging My Heart Around, and which is a classic. Just add Stevie. Heartbreakers song, really.
Well, last time I saw Stevie perform that song, the Pretenders were the opening act, and Chrissie Hynde came back on, and Chrissie was Tom Petty for the song.
Wow, that is pretty rad. I would have loved to have gone to that.
The last Eskimo Joe album was 2013. I mean, if you can go out and sing the songs of Fleetwood Mac, it's about time someone went out and did the songs of Eskimo Joe.
Yeah, maybe we're getting to. I'm ready for the Eskies tribute bands to start hitting the road. That'd be great. No, I mean, with Eskies, yes, we haven't sat down and made a record since 2013, but we have managed to put a few songs out and still kind of remain active. We did a little bit of a sabbatical, I guess you could call it, because everyone had, a few projects they wanted to work on. Which we've continued to do, but now because we're out of that 2-year cycle of writing, recording, and touring, I think we're working on new music at the moment. We'll probably just do one song at a time because that to get into a studio for 6 months and do that whole thing takes a lot of time out of all of our schedules. But we'll keep chipping away at that kind of stuff. But I'm certainly ready for the Eskies tribute bands to hit the road. Bring it on.
Well, there was 99 Ways. That's sort of the one and only new song, isn't it? Because Say Something and Leftover.
Say Something and 99 Ways were the two songs we kind of managed to put out over that 2021 period. And yeah, we're just kind of, when we always get together on a regular basis and just kind of look at what songs are floating around. And there's a particular stuff we've realized there's a particular style of songwriting we do when the three of us are in a room together, which makes it an Eskimo Joe song. So I'm always writing songs, but for a song to become an Eskimo Joe song is, it takes all three of us to be in the room at the same time. So yeah, we've got a song we're working on at the moment. We'll try and kind of get it finished over the next little period and then put it out early next year.
It's interesting you did Into Temptation, the Crowded House cover. Considering that Neil Finn was the replacement for Lindsey Buckingham in Fleetwood Mac.
I mean, it's a pretty good replacement, really. I actually am bummed out I didn't go and see that show because that just, because you had Mike Campbell on guitar, of course, as well. But yeah, what an amazing moment in time to have those characters all on stage together. Clearly, Stevie Nicks was a big Neil Finn fan. We still don't know the details of why Lindsey Buckingham wasn't let back in the band again, but my vote is probably just on he's a bit of a dickhead.
Yeah, all right. Well, we might do our research. I've got my fun fact that I need to tell you. What was the first album ever to cost $1 million to make?
I'm going to go with Tusk. Yes.
Very good, Mr. T. You got it there.
Well, yeah. I know that there's everyone gives that album a lot of shit because it's like a double album and it's kind of quite, self-indulgent. So for the people who are hardcore Fleetwood Mac fans, they love that album. And for people who love Rumours are just like find that album hard to access, but they clearly spent a lot of time. I mean, they spent a lot of time on Rumours, but a lot of time on Tusk.
Spending $1 million on Tusk in 1979. How does that compare to anything Eskimo Joe have ever recorded?
We've always been pretty classic budgeters after our first album because our first album ended up costing a lot of money, but we were so kind of green that we didn't really realize that every time, the producer asked for a different seat, it was going to go on our wanted a particular seat that they could sit on because that's what made them feel comfortable. We were like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And then, of course, that all went on our expense account. So I think we racked up a pretty decent amount on that first album, Girl. And then after that, we were like, okay, we got to be smarter about this. So from that moment on, we were very budget conscious, and the way we would do that is we would do endless amounts of demoing, and then we would go into the studio, knowing that we've got this finite period of time. We might never get to do it again, and we've just got to kind of work to this blueprint as quickly as possible. And then we would take it home and do a lot of post production. So the way we saved money was basically just getting our hands dirty and making sure we were doing a lot of the work ourselves. And I think with a band like Fleetwood Mac spending $1 million in the studio, that reeks of a band walking into a studio, a very expensive studio with no ideas, and going from day one of like, well, let's write the album in the studio. This is going to be great. And then, $1 million later, they've written an album, whereas, yeah, it costs money every time you walk into a studio. It costs money every time, someone gets a new bit of gear or, gets a special seat for the producer or whatever. And so you can see why they would have done that, because they've just made kind of accidentally, in a kind of zeitgeisty way, made an album for the ages, really great songs, good production, a kind of clear chemistry of what's happening in the band. But I don't think they were aware that they were going to make such a huge record. And I don't think they liked each other very much by the end of it. So you had this really bizarre situation with the band who were now, super commercial by, not me, like the commercial world came to them. They didn't go, we're going to make a mega commercial hit. You listen to it, still sounds good. I don't think they're cutting any corners and making it cheesy for the masses or anything. They just made a good record. But they got to the end of that process, and if it wasn't such a hit, they probably would have broken up, but then they were stuck, in this kind of world together where they were all part of this thing, and it was going to make them a lot of money to go on the road every time and to make another record. So yeah, they probably got in to make Tusk and just, sat there from day one going, well, what are we going to write about, and we probably went round and round in circles with that until they ended up with a double album.
Do you do much from Tusk?
Oh, good question. I've got to look at the play. Is Monday Morning from Tusk?
No, that's Fleetwood Mac. What about Tusk, the title track?
No, we're not doing Tusk, the title track. There's a couple of really good tracks that I would have loved to have done. I would have to I've got to look at the, maybe I should just bring that up quickly and I can tell you right now.
Well, Sarah was a big hit.
Spelt Sarah, funnily enough.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Sisters of the Moon. Wow. We are not doing anything from Tusk. So, yeah, we're not doing anything from Tusk. I didn't put the set list together, so but I think they were kind of going for the mega hits, and Tusk was, like I said, a bit of a fan favorite. There's like a joke on this show. I don't know if you ever watched The Mighty Boosh, which is just like a great kind of surreal television show with anyway, great. And then there's this one moment where this kind of shaman is doing this DJ set. And they're like, what are you going to play? He's like, I'm just going to play Tusk from start to finish, how it was meant to be listened to. It's like, that's the Fleetwood Mac mega fan opinion. But for everybody else, I don't think it was as accessible as an album.
I think it'd be very difficult to do the title track too. You'd have to get a marching band, with the marching drummers in to do something like that.
Bring that on.
Yeah, talk about blowing your first album budget out. You'd be well and truly blowing this live budget out if you had 20 or 30 drummers on stage.
I think you've nailed probably the reason why they had to tour then for the next 10 years of their life is because they had to go and do all that stuff. But they did actually, I feel like they kind of recovered, I guess you could say, from Tusk, and then in the early 80s started to put out these mega hits again. They kind of obviously got their head back into the game, and you've got Little Lies, and I mean even Big Love, and all of those songs were like pretty big hits. Seven Wonders, that's Seven Wonders.
Right. Yeah, Tango on the Night album. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So they definitely they were like, okay, cool, let's write some proper tunes again, and maybe went away to the drawing board and came back again.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely plenty to source from there, and you could theoretically do the entire Fleetwood Mac pre-Fleetwood Mac album as well as a whole other concert.
I would say bring that on. They should do it. They really should have done it in eras where we kind of did costume changes halfway through, and I could have started off in like a silk kimono and then, by the end of it, just have like, a suit jacket and like a really bad haircut.
Sounds good. So 2024, is that going to be full on Eskimo Joe then?
Yeah, we're going to do a whole bunch of touring. We're pretty kind of booked up to the end of the year. We've got some really cool festivals like the Good Things Festival, which will be lots of fun. A bunch of other kind of we've got some early stuff next year where we're playing with Incubus and Live and Birds of Tokyo doing a tour called Lookout, which will be another good one. So, I mean, I just feel I think everyone in Eskimo Joe is really enjoying playing music together at the moment because we're just in this really lovely space where, we're not quite a heritage band and we're not, we're definitely not a new band. So, but people know the music. You go to supermarkets and, Black Fingernails Red Wine or From the Seas generally plays at least once a day in every supermarket around Australia. So we have a really lovely scenario where people just kind of keep booking us on these big festival shows where they want songs that people know, and we just love it. Like we really appreciate it more now than ever because we've all gone off and done other projects and played to half, full rooms of people. And so it's kind of nice just to get on stage, with your friends and play a bunch of, songs that you wrote and that people, generations later are still getting into. So we feel very lucky at the moment.
Have you actually been in a supermarket when they played one of your songs?
Usually it's like about 4 or 5 in the afternoon and I've, just smoked a number, to do a bit of housework. And then I've gone, oh shit, we need some eggs. And then I get to the supermarket and it starts playing and I just have this kind of stoned paranoia moment where I like hug the aisle and I'm like, oh no, someone's going to recognize me. No one cares. But yeah, it actually happens all the time. Yep. So thank you, markets of the world.